I'm Josh Liston from On the Bubble podcast, an oral history of television fandom, part of the Gunna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other awesome geeky shows at GunnaGeekNetwork.com.
Show me your calendar and your checkbook, and I'll show you what your values are.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comments get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue 183, and we are howling at the moon because we're talking Bigby Wolf from Fables, a character requested by Ruby. So we're still finishing off the list that our former president levels have sent along. And if you are, in fact, a patron, you can go to patreon.com/capesonthecouch and subscribe. You can go and listen to our trade paperback review of the first arc of Fables. So it's a murder mystery, Who Killed Rose Red. It's a fun read. Also want to apologize for the delay in the new episodes. If you saw on social media, I was going through some stuff. I'm doing a lot better now. So we'll be getting back on schedule, back on track with the bi-weekly releases. Also, speaking of the Patreon, wanted to give a shout out to our new patron, Justin. Thank you for your support. Appreciate that. Hope you're enjoying the exclusive content and quite the back catalog. By the time this is released, we will just have dropped our feature film commentary on Captain Marvel. And in the coming weeks, we will be releasing one for the original Aquaman to tie in with the Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, Golden Kingdom, whatever the sequel is called, as the last remnants of the DCEU are petered out and released. But no Batgirl movie. God damn it. I'm still mad about that.
Aww.
I wanted to see what they were doing with it. And they're like, no, we would just rather shelve it and take the tax write-off. Not going to get into that. So in any case, we're here to talk Bigby Wolf. So, Bigby Wolf, created by Bill Willingham and Land Medina in Fables number 1 of July, July 2002. Side note, Bill Willingham just announced recently that he is releasing all of Fables into the public domain, and DC says, no, you can't do that. So whether or not it's legit, I don't know. I am not an intellectual property attorney. I have not seen the contracts between Willingham and DC/Vertigo. So I have no way of knowing just how authentic that claim of public domain release is.
Yeah, I'm not an attorney at all. And even I would think that would be incredibly problematic, even if you just said, hey, I want to make this public domain. Ouch. You've already been selling it. Like, that's, yeah. Huh.
Yeah, it's not quite like that thing from The Office that I know of, even though I haven't seen it, where Michael Scott just declares bankruptcy by yelling bankruptcy. Like, that's not how it works. I don't know exactly how it works, but I know that's definitely not it. So Bigby, like all of the characters in Fables, is based on characters from folklore. He is based on, as you could surmise, the big bad wolf. He is also the Sheriff of Fabletown, a section of New York City populated with characters from folklore and legend. So centuries ago, the North Wind fell in love with a wolf named Winter, and they had a litter of cubs. Bigby was the runt, relentlessly teased by his brothers and abandoned by his father. His mother was the only one who gave half a hoot about him. So when Winter died, Bigby's brothers left to go find their father, and Bigby vowed vengeance against his father and his brothers. Years later, after growing to an immense size, he confronted his father 7 times and 7 times failed to kill him. Eventually, he gave up and accepted defeat. So he then was living in the Black Forest, and he served as an uneasy ally of some of the other Fables who were fighting against the forces of the adversary which is kind of one of the overarching stories of the comic saga, that these characters were forced out of their homelands by the adversary and his army. So Bigby was allied with the other Fables and was leading several of them to a portal that would allow them to escape, but he insisted on tasting the flesh of anyone that was trying to pass through the portal, and he determined whether or not they were worthy to pass. And if he deemed them unworthy, well, he's a giant wolf. He was tasting their flesh, and you can see where this is going. So after being cut with a lycanthropy-stained knife owned by Snow White, he gained the power to change into a human at will and later mastered the power enough to control the extent of his transition. Under the guidance of King Cole, Bigby was later hired as Fabletown's sheriff because of his detective skills and fighting ability, but due to his earlier actions, namely eating folks, he remained untrusted by the other Fables. Can't imagine why. He later had 7 children with Snow White, and they inherited their father's abilities. Because of this, they all stayed at the farm where Bigby was forbidden to visit. The farm is where several of the Fables that basically could not pass as human were sent to live, because without getting into too much of the other mythology and lore of the Fables universe, one of the key things is that they live among the humans, who are called Mundies, as in mundane. But if you can't pass for a human, either through your own abilities or magic or what have you, then you're sent to live on the farm, which is where the 3 little pigs and various animals and giants, et cetera, et cetera. And the farm is in upstate New York. So, which also leads to some other intra-Fables fighting, because the animals basically say, you're treating us like second-class citizens and we're not going to stand for this anymore. And it's a whole thing. And because of all of the stuff that Bigby had done previously, the animals and other farm residents say, no, you can't come here or we'll kill you on sight. So Bigby can't stay with his family until he's forgiven by Prince Charming. And that's a whole other thing. I'm not going to get into that. So he marries Snow White, and then he and the family move to Wolf Valley, and he retires as sheriff. Fast forward a bit, Snow White gets into some squabbles with Prince Brandish. Bigby goes to fight Brandish. Brandish turns him into glass and kills him. Bigby gets resurrected by witches, but since one of the pieces of glass was missing, his resurrection was tainted, and so he kind of comes back wrong. It's very much like a monkey's paw kind of deal. And he's under the control of Nurse Sprat, who turns the last piece of glass into a ring that she uses to control this zombified, essentially, Bigby, until the final piece is returned and he is fully restored. And in the epilogue to the story, centuries later, he and Snow White are still happily married. He's a devoted husband and father, and he definitely experiences quite a bit of character development over the course of the 150 plus comics. And if you don't want to sit and read 150 comics, you can play video game, The Wolf Among Us, which kind of serves, if I'm not mistaken, as a bit of a prequel to some of the story in the comics.
Yeah. They're not married. There's other characters that have different roles. Parts of it take from the trade paperback review that we did, but not all of it. And it keeps the spirit of Fables, but clearly it's its own story, which is commonly what Telltale Games does with all of their content. I love Telltale Games as an industry. I love those types of games anyway, so I recommend it.
I will definitely have to add it to my Steam library if my friend Brian hasn't already, because he shares his library with me and he's got like 800 games. I'm not even exaggerating. So I will go through the list and see if it's on there somewhere. So that was kind of a brief summary. Again, we're not going to get too much into the whole folklore and mythology of Fables because we're kind of gearing in on Bigby here. So let's get into the issues. So the theme for Bigby is taming the mind while remaining wild at heart. And As I said, the first one we're going to discuss is one of the things we've mentioned a couple times. The other Fables do not trust him because of his actions prior to the amnesty. They're like, yeah, we understand you're the sheriff. We understand you're passing for human now. Yeah, it's great that you're with Snow White. She's deputy mayor and she claims to trust you, but no, we don't. And that's kind of hard considering, again, he's the sheriff who's already not exactly a trusted position.
Yeah, I don't even have to put any layers of symbolism on that. I mean, position of authority, and yet because of what you've done before that, you got in some trouble. So yeah, forget the wolf part, forget the mythology of it or anything. This is all about trust and what happens when trust is broken. So I've used this analogy before. I'm not sure if I've used it specifically for podcast episodes, but I know I've talked about this with other people and other therapists. This is not my original idea. I don't want to take full credit for it. But imagine you've gone away for, I don't know, let's say a week vacation, and you have someone, like, just picture it in your mind, someone you trust, and you say, all right, I'm going to be gone for a week. I want you to house sit, watch everything. Just make sure nothing disastrous happens. You can eat all the food, have fun, but please, just make sure when we get back, we're going to have a place to stay. And you come back and your house is completely burnt to the ground. And the person you trusted is standing outside with the fire department. They're asking what happened. You get a report and forget the details. But at this point, they say, like, whatever it is, I left the stove on. I tipped over, a candle when I was like taking a relaxing bath. I just, wasn't paying attention, whatever it is. So there's so many things that happen there. First of all, it could be a form of grief. If it's someone that you loved in the first place that has broken your trust, then yeah, you're going to go through stages of grief more than likely, whether it's in order or not. Same thing with any other level of grief. That's one aspect of it. The other side, of course, is how will you consider moving forward with the relationship? Is this a total deal breaker for you? And here's the part that's very difficult to understand from the person where it was an accident. You don't get to make the decision. It's out of your control. The other person is going to have whatever reaction they're going to have to the circumstance. Either they're going to say, you know what? I love you so much. I understand it was a mistake. I'm hurt. I'm disappointed, but we'll make it work. Or you have absolutely ruined my life, which, by the way, may be true. You have changed everything around so much in terms of how I'm processing this. I need some space, meaning it's meant to be a temporary thing, and eventually we'll find a way to work this out. Or get away from me before I kill you on sight. As I said before, you don't have control over the other person's responses. You only have control over your response once this has happened. And I'm trying to put it in the light that it wasn't intentional, but I just need to expand again. What if you were in a different headspace? What if it was something that, due to anger, due to frustration, things like that, forget the fire analogy, you did something that was hurtful. And now, because of your own processing of what you did or how you were feeling at the time or whatever, you now want to make amends. Once again, you don't get to choose how the other person feels about it. So all of this is well and good on the other person's side because they are going to make the best decision for them and how they live their life. How you decide to live yours and how you want to pursue whether or not you want to continue to try and mend that relationship or make other decisions and just let it be. These are all possibilities. And with someone like Bigby, and we'll get into this a little later, the way that he has to deal with it because the situation is so enmeshed, he doesn't get to throw it away. He has to deal with the fact that these people are still his responsibility. So you have to live with the circumstance that they don't want you, but they need you. And what you do from that point forward, I don't want to say that it's an easy choice, but it is one that's going to be thrust upon you pretty much every moment of your existence. That might take some time to work through where it doesn't cause micro trauma every day.
I don't know that it wouldn't. And I think that's also one of the reasons, among others, why he smokes and drinks so much to deal with the stress of the job. Also, just occurred to me, he is a wolf, but sheriffs, I thought cops are pigs, aren't they?
Oh, wow. Wow.
But the pigs don't trust him.
Oh, I am. It's rare that I feel like I get outpunned from the start. You got me, man.
So the second one, and this is very just straightforward, hostile relationship with his father. His father, the North Wind, is a right bastard, just unabashedly so. And he does not care for Bigby, and Bigby does not hide his disdain for his father in the least. Doesn't even try to hide it. Can't even bring himself to call him dad, just calls him Mr. North.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, forget all the pretense of mythology or anything else. This is the type of relationship that many people have to deal with. So when it's mutual, it's fascinating to me because, especially a situation like this, he wants revenge, but I'll admit, I'm going to get a little deeper into the psyche here. He actually still wants acceptance. That's just the nature of the parent-child relationship. You want to get to the point where, as an adult, you have some level of stability with the person that brought you into, or one of the people that brought you into the world. That is the natural way that we are wired as organisms. I know all the other more complicated theories of Oedipus and all these other things. I'm not even getting into that. I'm just simply saying whatever trauma happened when you were young, at some point, if that person still exists and you are making a conscious choice about how you're processing everything, then it's not even saying that you want to like the person. It's simply that you don't want it to continue to cause pain. That never happens. So what do you do with that pent up energy and frustration? Because you're not getting one of the most basic needs fulfilled ever. It never happened. You were rejected from the start. Bigby tries to use anger towards his father as a means of somehow rectifying the situation, trying to fix it. Father doesn't want anything to do with it. I know story-wise is that his father always wins. I'm not even going that far. The point is that it's not getting resolved. His father is not even allowing for that resolution. So now you're going to have to find another way to accept the idea that the previous generation in your own biology is still good enough, even though all the evidence that you've been given by the people that in theory would be closest to you have said otherwise. It's kind of tough. You can get external validation, and he does. He finds close relationships that allow him to continue to live a fulfilled life. But anytime it's brought up, it's very clear it never lets that go. So, once again, for anyone that suffered this type of trauma, please understand. I'm not saying that it'll ever be okay, but I will say it can be better than it is now. And it doesn't require the other person to validate that.
Yeah, and it very much, in a odd sense, kind of mirrors one of the other major father-son relationships in the series. And apologies for spoiler alerts for a 15-something-year-old comic book at this point, but the relationship between the adversary, aka Geppetto, and Pinocchio, is very similar. Pinocchio knows that Geppetto is a bastard, but because Geppetto used some sort of loyalty spell in the magic when he created Pinocchio, Pinocchio hates his father, but he cannot break away from him. So it's this contrast between Pinocchio and Bigby in terms of their relationships with their asshole dads.
And
Pinocchio wants to break away, but can't.
Yeah, and just to expound on that a little bit, because once again, there are examples of this, because I know it gets just direct to fighting, but what if someone is in a situation where the parents have a will or something where there is a potential benefit down the road, and that is used as the carrot for the child to do whatever it is the parents want, despite the fact that there is an adversarial relationship? Now you're talking about true manipulation. There is a reason for the relationship to continue instead of breaking ties. Now you're just on a scale. What is the true value of doing what someone else that I despise wants me to do, or have a relationship, maintain a relationship that I am getting lots of negative feedback for? Like, I just emotionally can't tolerate it. And yet, because of this other potential reward, I'm willing to just suppress my emotions, just do something different, and just bear it out as long as I can. I'm not saying that's a good way to handle it, but that's one of the other potential nuances to it. Or maybe it's a child, relationship where I've been living with them because financially I'm having trouble and they're helping me out, but I can't stand being under the same roof with them. Like, there's so many variations to this. I don't want to make it sound like it's purely this, battle. It doesn't have to be. It's just, that's the most primal way, aptly so. But it has so many other layers to it, or can have multiple layers to it.
Yeah, and I think that actually kind of segues very nicely into the third issue, which is this internal dissonance between his animalistic nature and the human side that he has to present. Because he is one of the lucky fables, I suppose, for lack of a better term, that can present in a human fashion and can pass in society and isn't forced to live on the farm. He can walk around and look like a person, but he is still at heart a wolf.
Yeah.
He is still an animal.
Yeah.
And all of that raw nature is constantly bubbling just under the surface. And even after centuries, still there.
Yeah. So in this case, I'll keep a little bit of the mythology, especially when it comes to wolves. If anybody knows anything, especially both Western and Eastern Europe, especially, Norse mythology, but also actually there's plenty of indigenous ideas related to wolves. Like, just, there's certain things in nature that are considered to be majestic and yet incredibly dangerous. And that's what the wolf tends to symbolize: strength and mystery. As humans, I'm going to bring it back to, relevant stuff for all of us. As humans, there are times where many people just want to, let's just call it what it is. They don't want to shut our brains off. We want to just do what feels good in the moment. And in certain small doses, that can be great. If you just want to take a break and, whatever it is. I'm not trying to shame anybody for anything that they do. I'm not getting into that. I'm just saying, enjoy yourself, have fun, not hurting anybody, in drips and drabs here, whatever. Great. But what happens if that's all you want to do? Almost hedonistic, or heaven forbid, it's things that are more reckless. I mean, we got people that, it's nice to see how strong that engine is in your car when you're, on the highway. It might be one of those things where you're kind of athletic and you really want to test yourself in some of these buildings with your parkour. I'm giving really extreme examples with those things. It can be relationships. It can be, that one night stand. It can be, I mean, everybody, insert your own examples here. You know what gets you going, okay? I'm not trying to shame anybody. What happens if you actually say to yourself, that is my priority in life. That is the number one thing that I want to do, at the excuse of everything else. And you can see how that might create some problems, especially if you have responsibilities to other people. I know, especially in Western cultures, people are familiar with the term midlife crisis. It's like magically there's this switch where you feel like you've neglected parts of yourself, and you're willing to sacrifice some of the things that you previously said were important for what sounds like almost childish adolescent things that, you had put to the wayside and you try and rediscover them, or you somehow see the world differently and you let go of other things. Why is it that doesn't last? Usually. Why is that? It's because, as I've said many times, all things in moderation. You can't sustain yourself on hedonistic energy. It's just not possible. You're going to just be chasing a bigger and bigger high. And I don't just mean substances, although it can be that. And if you find yourself on that type of treadmill, and if you're finding that you're not sowing your wild oats in a way that you can't fit it into your regular schedule, then I would challenge what your calendar looks like. I would challenge what your livelihood looks like, because this doesn't have to be an either or situation, you know? So I guess what I'm getting at with this is you really ought to make sure that you play hard while you also work hard, while you also think hard, while you also love hard. You can do all of these things, just not all at once and not all the time. And I don't know what the ratio is for everybody, but please find out what it is so that you just don't basically immolate yourself in just pure ecstasy.
So in other words, don't die hard.
I can't believe that you...
I can't believe you missed that opportunity.
No, it's not that I missed the opportunity. It was, you know, you're on your game with this, man. I'm sorry. Wow.
Okay, motherfucker. Well, we're going to take a break, and when we get back, we'll get into treatment. Stick around.
Have you ever been reading through a stack of comics and thought, maybe I should see what this Arkham Asylum game is all about? Or been playing Marvel vs. Capcom and felt like you were at a real disadvantage since you didn't know who half the characters were? Well, Play Comics is the show for you. I'm Chris, and each episode we take a look at video games based on comic properties and how well they stick to that source material. So whether you know the comics and want to know how all these games work, or you know the games and want to find out where all this craziness came from, go check out Play Comics at playcomics.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Have you ever wondered what scotch will make your palate feel like it's just gone on a majestic journey through the Highlands? If LeBron will ever win another ring? Or if the Leafs will ever win another Stanley Cup?
Mike, if they tune in to Scotch and Sports, they're going to find all that out and more. They're going to find out what's souring our scotch, what our next scotch on the shelf is, and our On the Rocks segment, where we debate two topics. You just met Mike. I'm Gertie. We got suds coming up, and we may be drinking scotch, but our biased opinions don't change no matter how much we've had, and we have quite a bit. We'll even answer viewer questions, so send them in, and if you don't like the answer, well, we'll just have to have another scotch, and we can still all be friends.
We even talk a little, or a lot, of pop culture. Where else can you find hot takes on WandaVision, NFL analysis, and the fact that the Leafs will in fact win the Stanley Cup this year? Answer, Scotch and Sports.
Hi, I'm Erica Schultz, and this is Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling.
And we're back. So treatment. And universe treatment for Mr. Wolf, if he's even willing to deal with you as a Monday.
Yeah, this is tough. This is really tough. I am trying to find something that I don't even know what to call it. Is there a type of magic that would allow me to be acceptable to these mythical characters, like to someone like him? That would be great. That would be a fantastic start. You know, if not, then ouch. I mean, I think the biggest thing about it is I want to know how you can get someone or something so mythical to actually try and how do I put this? Appreciate the mundane. That's really what I'm getting at. It's everything in stories has to be bombastic. It has to move. It has to have massive conflicts with overwhelming resolutions and all of that. And I need him to just chill out, can't you? Like just a little bit. And how to get that, I'm not exactly sure, because the idea of Fables living happily ever after is just ingrained in it. And I'm like, that's just not the way it is. There's a reason why we call it the pursuit of happiness and not happiness. And the definition of happiness, like all of this stuff just, it's, I feel like it misses the point. And I almost feel like if there's a way to, oh God, if we're going to go into fables, I mean, is there a way then I almost like to go to Arabic cultures and stuff if I can harness wind, like maybe getting a freed or something like that, because that's the one thing he hasn't beaten. And I'm not trying to take the place of his father, but if I can create something, let's say a sandstorm, because that's the opposite. It's not cold. It's uninviting. It's harsh, but that also means that it's something he respects. And if I can find a way, not that I could totally control it myself, but if I'm using a jinn, meaning a genie, and I can actually do that and say like, you know what, maybe you can't do this with your father, but maybe we could find a way to tame this and in some little way tame yourself.
Okay. Because you would obviously have to tap into some kind of magical power, something to get him to coordinate with you in some fashion.
Exactly. Which is why I went to Arabian Nights as opposed to all of the, Northern and, European things, because those are amazing. Let me make this clear, by the way, folks. I know it's a little tangent, but I absolutely love these types of stories. I love Grimm's fairy tales. I mentioned 1001 Arabian Nights. I love Japanese folk tales. All these things are just so amazing to me. And so the fact that someone made comics from this, I was like just blown away. So oh God, I appreciate the fact that I used a pun I didn't even intend to. This is that type of night, people. But yeah, I just want to say I have significant reverence for this. And I might even ask Anthony to link. It's part of a YouTube video that just goes into the mythology of the wolf and just how cool it is. Anyway, okay. I'm sorry. Let's move on.
No, absolutely. I will totally do it. So send it over and then send over whatever else you feel is apropos for carrying on this discussion. Out of universe then, I mean, we talked about basically how at the very least for the first two, you don't even need any sort of fictional whatever. So you've got a cop with daddy issues.
Yeah.
Who's, got some trauma that he's dealing with.
Yeah. And then
it's
meanwhile,
not all that far-fetched to say,
right?
These guys exist.
Yeah. And then they're kind of acting out in different ways that gets them in trouble. Maybe they're getting into bar fights and stuff, or maybe their situation with their own family is falling apart because they seem to just booze it up. And, I mean, okay, now maybe we're making this too personal for some people. Like, okay, we're not, once again, not judging, okay? But
not judging, just pointing at statistics at the rate of domestic violence and alcoholism amongst members of law enforcement. Just saying.
Okay, so the first thing is if it's possible, because many times these people are closed off to the idea of treatment. I'm saying this in general. Once again, if you truly want to show just how strong you are, then actually take the step to ask for help. Okay? If we're talking about law enforcement, there's cop to cop. You could do it with peers. So that way there's much less stigma, much less judgment. If we're talking about anybody else, it doesn't have to be law enforcement, then all the resources that we've always talked about, in terms of finding someone that is at where you want to be. So if it is substances, AA groups, NA groups. If it's not, if it's more just personal interactions where you're looking for a different environment, there are healthy men's clubs. If you feel like it's a loss of, once again, I know we were talking about mythology before, but the key to that, spirituality, the idea that there's something greater than just yourself and you're trying to find that, then there is opportunities there. I'm trying to give all of the options before saying one-on-one therapy and a psychiatrist, because I think sometimes, and I know this might actually be costing me money, but I think sometimes we place that at the forefront when in reality, that's the bandage. That's the thing, that's the added tool in the toolbox. but you're not actually changing the other parts that are going to ultimately lead to fulfillment. I am going to be the person that treats the underlying depression, anxiety, anger, all of those things. That is true. I admit that. But those other components to your life, male or female, by the way, because I know we targeted males the way I was talking, okay? But regardless of that, there's going to be some areas where you're going to have to call on people that aren't necessarily therapists and counselors, and you're going to have some difficult interactions to have a better quality of life. Saying you're sorry, apologizing to people that still are willing to accept it, and even if they're not, actually recognizing whatever your work schedule is and seeing if it actually fits in with the other components that you feel you've been either neglecting or you didn't even recognize existed. Show me your calendar and your checkbook, and I'll show you what your values are. So doing that part of the work, because I know what my job is, and the therapist knows what their job is, that's fine. We'll take that brunt. But that other stuff, that part, I'm sorry, we don't have a pill for. And so if you want to confront those things and actually deal with the adjustments that have to be made with that and deal with that level of pain, once again, if you want to show that strength, then go ahead and do it. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing way to progress. Just putting that out there because I want people to know it's not just that antidepressant that's going to get the job done. If you haven't actually fostered the relationships that are important to you, it's not just going to be the anxiolytic that handles those tough meetings at work where you got to just say up front to your boss, you know what? I'm not saying I'm quiet quitting, but I do have to take a step back because there are other things that are more important to me. All those types of things that you just can't delegate away. At some point, it's going to happen. Either people are going to do it for you or you're going to do it for yourself. I hope that you do it for yourself so that you can keep the other people in your life.
Yep. Either you control your circumstances or the circumstances will control you. So all that being said, let's see what happens when we get Bigby Wolf on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, Mr.
Bigby. Bigby's fine.
Hello, Bigby. I'm Dr. Issues.
And I'm leaving.
Please don't, or we're both going to be in trouble.
There won't be any trouble if you just step aside. You can see I'm fine. I've come in like this before, and I tell everyone in the ER that I'm fine, and they let me go.
Not this time.
Why not?
Because you've come in so many times with unknown injuries, outlandish reports that don't make sense, and by the time you leave, it's as if nothing ever happened.
Exactly.
That's why the ER director wants me to do a psychiatric evaluation for decision-making capacity. If you refuse, then the police will be contacted to do a wellness check on wherever you say you're going.
That's going to be a problem.
I agree. So what's up? My main point is to determine if you understand the risks and benefits of your decision-making and if you're a danger to yourself, others, or property.
Look, I'm not a danger to anyone unless they get in my way. But if you don't let me out of here, you are putting others in danger. Can you live with that?
Nope. That's why I have confidentiality on my side. And the only way it's broken is if there's a danger. So you're not the danger and someone else is, according to what you say. Prove it.
That's just it. If I tell you, then you're in danger. The safest thing for you is to keep you in the dark. You just have to trust me.
But do you trust me?
No.
Well, you sound kind of paranoid. That means the feeling's mutual, okay? We got a Mexican standoff here. I have my regs, okay? You can beat me to a pulp. You can bash your way out of here. You can tangle with the police. But I know my job, and it's protecting society at all costs. That's all there is to it for me at this point. What's so funny?
You and I are a lot more alike than I figured. Okay, fine. Have it your way. I'll play your game. I'll answer your questions, but only far enough to get me out of here. We clear?
Crystal.
I hate that word.
Why?
Bad experience. Long story.
Long story. Well, for once, I ain't got time for that. Plus, you're obviously in a hurry. All right, so let's get down to it. Why'd you come to the hospital?
Well, I didn't exactly volunteer. Tough scrape. I got hit with a truck. What felt like a truck. I know people don't survive too many hard shots, and they said they wanted to check me for a concussion, so here I am.
Well, you look and sound pretty good, all things considered.
You should see the other guy.
All right. Were there any homicidal threats?
Nope, not this time.
Not this time. How often do you get threatened? Is this like a mob thing or?
No. Believe it or not, I'm actually on the side of keeping things in order. I really can't say more than that.
Classified?
Sure, let's go with that.
All right. I think I'm getting the picture. You weave quite the tale.
No kidding. You done?
Not quite. Do you know what the typical treatment plan is for when you're evaluated for physical and mental injuries?
I wait a while, and if I'm okay, I leave. Like I said, 1,000,000 times. Every time. Including now.
Well, you're consistent. I like it. And do you know the risks if you leave without any further medical evaluation?
Yeah, I get to not talk to you anymore, and I get on with my job. My very important job that keeps you and everyone else safe, and none the wiser. Am I making myself clear?
A bit grandiose, but sir, yes, sir.
What?
Okay, sorry. I didn't mean the sarcasm. I'm picking up what you're putting down. You're a tough guy, lots of fighting skill, important work under lock and key, no major injuries, survival, protection. Okay, all right. I'm satisfied. You don't have to tell me what branch. Is it CIA, FBI, Secret Service, ADF, DEA? Ooh. Maybe you're international. It's like MI6.
You read too many novels. Stop. Completely off the books. Wasn't even trying with that one.
All right. Look. I'll make your chart locked, and the only way to break the seal is if you or your POA approves. Is that a deal?
What's a POA?
Power of attorney. It's too complicated. Or look, if you don't have the ability to share that type of legal document, you would just need a listed next of kin.
Not a chance. He's too much of a blowhard. And the missus, well, she found out I'd gotten in a scrape like this. It's not going to end well for me.
Wow. Where's the pants there? Okay, suit yourself. I'll be as vague as possible with details. You know what? All right, let me give you a heads up. I can't keep this up forever. If you do anything to compromise yourself, I won't be able to hold back what's in store for you. Look, as a doctor, I got to tell you, it sounds like you're going to get yourself killed at some point.
Wouldn't be the first time. Well, I came really close.
Oh, I'm okay. Maybe I was harsh. I'm sorry to hear that. A little disclosure. I see more people like you than you realize. Yeah, basically, I know your type.
Yeah, what?
No, calm down. I mean the facade. You come off like a grizzly, but I know underneath that you're a teddy bear. That's all. I work with some people like that. And even as a psychiatrist, I know I can't change them, so I just ride the wave, But word of advice, I really hope that you let the people close to you see like that softer underbelly, instead of the claws.
Damn, Doc. You're a lot closer than you realize. Not bad for a Monday.
Do I have to question your orientation? It's Wednesday.
Can I go now? So, recommended reading. If you want to read Fables, you can, but recommended reading is actually to play The Wolf Among Us.
Yeah!
Which, while we were recording, I checked on Steam. Brian does have it in his library, and I've already gone ahead and installed it.
Oh my God.
You're going to have a lot of computer. I was like, okay, let me just check.
I guarantee you're going to have a lot of fun. You are. You really are.
Okay.
I won't spoil it for you.
That's fine. I don't know where I'm going to find the time. Something else has got to give. I suppose I don't have to eat, right? Or maybe, if I cut pooping out of my
please understand
my day, that will free up about 10 minutes or so.
Please understand, these are storytelling on rail games. It's not like they branch out, but they still come to the same major points. Only the details of themselves change. You'll be fine. It's quick.
Define quick, but anyway. So upcoming episode, we've got Airbard Thawne. Aquaman to tie in with the film release, and Echo to tie in with the TV show release. And as I said, we're going to have Aquaman film commentary for the patrons to drop in time for that. And I also have to get working on reaching out to some folks about Echo, because there are a number of things that character has that are at least beyond the scope of what Doc and I have firsthand knowledge and experience of, both from a Native American standpoint and from a hard of hearing standpoint. So perhaps that will be a bit of a roundtable episode, but I have some ideas. I just have to actually go out and do the damn planning. But, that's the story of my life. So anyway, you can find all of our episodes on our website, capesonthecouch.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Threads at Capes on the Couch. We are proud members of the Gonna Geek Network. So you can go to GonnaGeekNetwork.com or GonnaGeek.com and check out all of the other shows, the other fabulous shows. I know Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. just wrapped up their Loki Season 2 recap. I did one episode on there. I think it was like the second one. And unfortunately, I was just not available literally every other Saturday to record with them. So all credit to SP and Michelle and Chris, Lauren, and everybody over there. Fantastic crew. Go and check them out. And as I said, if you want to be awesome like Justin, you can subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/Capes on the Couch, and subscribe, unlock additional content, uncensored material, cool stuff like the film commentaries and a whole bunch of other awesome stuff. And it helps support the show and keep the lights on and all that good stuff. So, Doc, I'll let you get the puns in.
You really think I have puns for something like this? Look, if you're an adolescent, just enjoy those Teen Wolf years and, have some fun. All right. If you ever go to London, just make sure that your hair is perfect. Always stay hungry. And please don't set up your house full of straw men so that you just sound like you're going to be huffing and puffing, getting nowhere. Okay. Please, please, please learn how to enjoy your life responsibly. That's all I have to say.
For Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.